Have you ever found yourself looking at your phone and suddenly, like waking up from a dream, you realize you're not entirely sure how or why your phone is in your hand?
Or have you ever noticed that in a lot of the movies and the television shows we watch, people only really use their phones for texts and phone calls? We don't see them wasting away the hours browsing TikTok or looking at fashion on Instagram. We don't have to watch characters binging YouTube late into the night, falling asleep to the soft blue glow of a phone. To be fair, watching a show with an accurate portrayal of how the average person uses their smartphone would be very, very boring.
In our discussion about addiction, we've talked about a variety of things: coping, dopamine, opioids, vaping, and pornography. But we have yet to talk about arguably the most common addiction: social media.
Before we begin, let's start with a couple of simple questions to discuss with the people around you. What's something good about social media? What's something not good about social media?
Most people, young and old, know that excessive social media use isn't the healthiest thing. We know that we should put down our phones and engage with our real lives and our real friends. And as much as we'd like to believe it's something only young people struggle with, it feels like adults of all ages wrestle with overusing their phones. They don't get a free pass.
In this episode, we don't want to join a chorus of people telling us we should feel bad about our phone usage. Our goal is to help create a conversation about social media and our smartphones, a conversation we believe will help us.
In our first episode, we discussed how our brain's natural systems like dopamine can be manipulated and exploited. This isn't always a bad thing, believe it or not. Many of the ways we entertain ourselves rely on tricking our brains in some way.
Our brains celebrate the fictional character defeating the bad guy, or our real favorite sports team finally beating their rival or winning the championship. We didn't do anything, but our brains react regardless. Video games are especially good at this. It's part of the reason many people find them to be so enjoyable. But of course, there can be downsides.
Which brings me on to the tricky subject of the ethics of compulsive game design. As I've hopefully shown here, good games often utilize quirks with the way humans process rewards and time investment to get you to have more fun with games you are already enjoying. However, that makes it difficult to distinguish between ethical game design and evil, exploitative game design, because at a fundamental level, they both utilize exactly the same psychological techniques to encourage us to do things. An exploitative video game, like literally any gacha game, might use limited timers on events and offers to encourage you to play more, and eventually spend more. Equally, Dead Cells uses time limits to stress you out and get you to play faster and more riskily in the hopes of finishing a level in time to grab a big reward.
Smartphones and social media do something similar to our brains. They feel good to use and often provide us enjoyable experiences, but they also manipulate our brains.
We see it in the statistics around our smartphones. We spend almost 3 hours a day on average on our phones. Right around 70% of us check our phones within the first 5 minutes of waking up. 2/3 of us experience nomophobia, the fear of being without our phones. The average person unlocks their phone 150 times a day. And right now, the best estimates are that we'll spend more than 5 years of our lives on social media. This definitely qualifies as an addiction, but it's more than that. It's more like our lives. As Annie Dillard puts it, how we spend our days is of course how we spend our lives.
Like we've discussed before, many addictions begin out of a genuine, often good human desire. How does social media do this? Social media can take our genuine desire for human connection and twist it in an unhealthy way.
This has resulted in many of us being conditioned to rely on our phones and social media. Smartphones have shifted how we structure our lives. They have changed the way that we schedule our days and our thoughts. Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris has thought a bunch about the danger of social media. He puts it this way.
When you pull out your phone and they design how this works or what's on the feed, it's scheduling little blocks of time in our minds. If you see a notification, it schedules you to have thoughts that maybe you didn't intend to have. If you swipe over that notification, it schedules you into spending a little bit of time getting sucked into something that maybe you didn't intend to get sucked into. When we talk about technology, we tend to talk about it as this blue sky opportunity. It could go any direction. And I want to get serious for a moment and tell you why it's going in a very specific direction. Because it's not evolving randomly. There's a hidden goal driving the direction of all of the technology we make. And that goal is the race for our attention.
It goes beyond notifications distracting us. It's baked into the very design of our apps. Social media has been designed to mimic other addictive habits. When we check our phones hundreds of times a day, when we swipe down to refresh our feeds, we're engaging with the same design techniques that make slot machines so addictive.
Social media is designed to give us something called intermittent variable rewards. Sometimes when you pull the social media lever or swipe down on your Instagram feed, you'll maybe see a new post by your crush. But maybe you'll just see some random ad or something else you don't care about.
It might seem like the smart thing to do would be constantly giving you posts that you care about. But if you've already seen everything you want to see, you wouldn't want to come back for more. This seemingly random nature of refreshing the feed and the very not random algorithm keeps us hooked in coming back. This doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of how notifications constantly buzz to keep us returning back to our devices.
This takes us to a question. Are there times where you feel like you don't need your phone? What do those times look like? Discuss this with the people around you.
People's answers probably varied a little bit. Maybe you talked about a flow state, like running or playing video games or playing an instrument. Being in a flow state is a time where we're so focused, we almost forget that our phones are a thing.
What is this place?
You know how when you humans are really into something and it feels like you're in another place? Feels like you're in the zone, right?
Yeah?
Well, this is the zone. It's the space between the physical and spiritual.
Wait a minute. I was here today during my audition. This must be where musicians come when they get into a flow.
Not just musicians. Watch this.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou? Line!
Oops. Check this out. I have been messing with this team for decades.
And the Knicks lose another one!
Another time we might forget about our phones is when we're spending time with the people we love, like our friends and family. Maybe when Johann Hari said the opposite of addiction is connection, he was onto something. But this is also part of the reason why social media is so effective. We want connection, we want community, and we falsely believe that likes and comments in social media will be able to fulfill this desire.
But we know we're substituting something real and valuable for something vapid and empty. We settle for the lesser when the real thing is in arm's reach. We're not much better than the Israelites, making a golden idol while the God of the universe sits a stone's throw away.
We desire connection with each other. We desire to feel good, but we settle for the lesser. the golden social media calf of connection, the golden alcohol calf of feeling good for a little while, not realizing that true connection and true joy is inviting us to Him. Jackie Hill Perry puts it this way: "For every empty bottle of wine, drunk to the dregs without self-control's restraint, there is the proof of a soul wanting to find peace in something that doesn't have it to give." Even social media thrives most on our neediness and the way it makes us discontent in being known and loved by God and God alone. Looking to it and not Him for love and other things, every post reveals from what place we find value and identity.
This is where we would argue that true community and connection come into play, and a practice that many modern Christians have neglected: confession. Maybe you've heard about accountability partners, but the truth is that Christians should be a confessing people, confessing our tendencies to chase after that which doesn't satisfy, not only to friends, but also to the one in whom the human soul does find satisfaction.
One of the biggest things that keeps us in addictive behaviors is the belief that we are the only one who struggles, that something is broken within us. But the truth is, all humanity strives in vain after broken, empty gods in our own special ways. Most of the Old Testament is people doing this, and our modern addictions are not so different.
But our confessions are different from the confessions of the Israelites of the Old Testament. We live in the shadow of the cross and the joy of an empty tomb, where Jesus provides us the hope for the future, where our lifeless habits and broken addictions will fall away.
But we live in the already but not yet, where Jesus has already come, but everything has yet to be made new. We'll leave you with an encouragement from the conclusion of Hebrews chapter 4. "Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need."